Welcome to this edition of Transformation Thursday. As always, we are excited and we are delighted and grateful that you have joined us for this edition again of Transformation Thursday. I want to welcome Dr. Christopher Chappell. As always, Chris, on last week, we talked about getting back on mission. And we started our conversation in talking about those things that often get us off a mission. Last week we talked about our reluctancy or inability or to say no to those things that get us off mission, no to those things that get us off track. And when we fail to say no to those things that get us off track, we recognize that it also has a tendency to get us off mission. Today, I want to kind of continue that conversation about getting back on mission. And I want to bring up the second point that I brought up on last week. And that's the point of procrastination. Because procrastination also often gets us off mission. Data suggests to us that the vast majority of people procrastinate in some area. And then there are about 20% of us, myself as included, that are chronic procrastinators. And I would admit that's one of my weaknesses, chronic procrastination. When we put off our goals and purpose for whatever reason, causing us to get off mission, to get off track. I was thinking just recently, and I read a post that just kind of stuck in my mind, and that post said, procrastination is the audacity to believe that God will give us an opportunity to do tomorrow what He asked us to do today. And I hope that sinks into others' spirit as well. The audacity to believe that God will give us an opportunity to do tomorrow what He asked us to do today. What a powerful thought. And when you put it into perspective, that's literally what we're doing. We have the audacity to believe that God will give us a chance to do it tomorrow. In the Bible, in Luke chapter 9, towards the end of the chapter, throughout the whole chapter, Jesus has been performing miracle after miracle after miracle. He gets to this place and he asks someone who has just come to him after seeing all these things happen. And Jesus says, "Follow me." And that particular person responds by saying, First, let me go and bury my father. The issue is not with him burying his father. The issue was procrastination. His father had not passed yet. But he said, let me go and bury my father. Because oftentimes we put off what we're called to do. We put it off, or we make excuses. We procrastinate. Sometimes because we're afraid to jump into what God is calling us into. We're afraid of the uncertainty of what He's calling us to. We're afraid of what might happen, the what ifs of life. Procrastination. And so today, I want our conversation to focus on procrastination. And I don't know about you, Chris, but I already told you that my weakness is procrastination, but I want to throw it out at you. What are your thoughts on procrastination?
Ooh, procrastination is the first thing that that comes to mind is, other than of course my own personal issue with it, because sometimes procrastination is mostly rooted in avoidance.
Yeah.
Right. For whatever reason, it could be, well, I don't feel like it. It could be avoiding the challenge. It could be insecurity. It could be so many different things, but I think we're all guilty of it in some form or fashion. But the severe part of it, to me, from my experience, is that procrastination tax. Right? So there's a cost for it. And, and we have this illusion sometimes because, we get pretty good at procrastinating, right? So we procrastinate for a while, and then the thing that we're pressed to do. I was just in a meeting, like for instance, I was in a meeting today, something that we have 30 days to do something that we should have done over 10 months. So now we are condensing all of that effort into the now, right? And it could be, it has its use case. I'm not saying that procrastination doesn't have its use case, but is that the most efficient? Well, it's debatable, right? But the tax becomes when it's debilitating and paralyzing, right? So procrastination, in a sense, is used too, because sometimes your best thoughts flows when you're under that pressure and you have the adrenaline going and you're moving forward and nailing the target. But it's extremely dangerous when it's avoidance for the sake of not doing it because of those other deeply rooted and deeply seated issues of insecurity or of fear. And fear is the number one killer of dreams. And fear often leads to procrastination and avoidance. So yeah, procrastination has a huge tax. It has its use case, but that's only for the skill. And sometimes we get it confused about that skill, right? It's a double-edged sword, and it's not one that we should play with lightly.
I fully agree. Because you said that, I'm gonna give you my story real quick. When I was prepared to work on my PhD, getting ready for my candidacy exam, that exam that we would take when I was in grad school, that said that you can keep going. You can continue to work on your project, continue to work on your PhD. And I had all this time to stay, but never did. Instead, I prepared to go on a vacation with my friends to Cancun. And I knew I had the exam the week after I got back from Cancun. I spent the whole semester, didn't study because I kept putting it off. And I convinced myself that I would study while I was in Cancun, and I would have ample time. But honestly, I ain't doing any studying in Cancun. And so when I got back, I got a week to go, but when I got back, I was sick for the first 3 days. So I didn't study. And then when I finally mustered up the energy to actually study, I only had a few days, and I'm trying to cram years of stuff in preparation for this exam. And you probably already know the story, but I failed it miserably. Failed it miserably. My only saving grace is that God is merciful. And he is gracious.
Yeah.
And my committee said, we'll give you another chance.
Mm-hmm.
We'll give you another chance. And I took full advantage, and studied and studied and studied, and ended up passing. And the story is in essence, I finished my program. But you would think I would have learned my lesson. But I did not. I did not. And earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, as many people do, many people go through the process of doing resolution, New Year's resolution. And I actually found myself doing this vision board. And on that vision board, I put down all of the things that I would like to have to see happen in the year. And towards the end of my vision board, I put a word in there. The word was when. When will you do it? When will you start doing this? When will you make this happen? When will you start working on these pieces? When? And I put that in there to remind me not to procrastinate, but to set myself timelines so that I will push forward. And so I want to start there because I want to ask you a question.
All right.
The question is, how do you break? And I'm going to call it a spirit. That spirit of procrastination.
If I'm Judgment Day honest, I don't know if it's totally broken because I was literally in the meeting yesterday, and you said something that God is merciful, right? And sometimes we take for granted that. And I said these words in the meeting yesterday. It's like, well, why you haven't done this? Why haven't you followed up on these things? I trust the process. And it's like, well, you shouldn't, because you need to get these. And I said something, and I didn't intend it for to be taken the wrong way, but I said it always work out.
Mm-hmm.
It always work out.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's dangerous. Again, that's dangerous, right? Because it can work out easier if we just break the spirit and just stay on task. And I'm going to get to the answer your question, right? But the danger comes when there may be a time, unforeseen circumstance. In your case, when you come back, you have plans to study, and now you're sick for 3 days. We don't account for those things.
Right.
And that's our arrogancy, I believe, sometimes, to believe that it's just going to work out perfectly and everything's going to be just fine. But how do we break that spirit? Well, I know at the times when I'm most optimized, I was literally just thinking about this before we got on. And because I'm working on a project right now that's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was literally thinking about, when have I had my biggest wins, and what was I doing when I was winning in those times personally?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I was optimized.
Mm.
I was optimized in every single aspect, and I treated everything as if it was just as important as the other thing, right? You know, there's a saying to say that the way that you do one thing is the way that you do everything, something like that. Probably not saying it correctly, but here's the point: when you like truly dialed in and you locked in and you focus on the entire board,
Mm-hmm.
you don't take any time for granted.
Yeah.
Like I literally, like the way personally that I do, I have a couple apps that I use, and they're literally like just tracking apps.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what a good day is for me personally. I know what a good day, and my good day is based on objectivity and not just a feeling. So I know if I'm doing these morning routines, if I'm doing these particular things, if I'm studying at this time, I'm putting this much time, the results will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
It's just about nailing the task, bringing focus and effort to the mission that's at hand,
Mm-hmm.
and winning. That, for me personally, that's how I win best.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. I was exploring a book a little earlier. The book was called Eat That Frog. And it really talked about exactly what you said. It talked about goal setting, prioritizing. It talked about the rewards. And then there are some other things that I was exploring about your keeping your perspective in mind, connecting with your why. Again, that prioritizing and organizing, developing consistent habits. I think that's the one piece you were kind of nailing in also, that developing those consistent habits that these are my repeatable steps, that consistent habit every day. That what are those things you're consistently doing and getting into such a flow? On the way back today from an event, I was talking to my colleague about this same thing, getting into a flow. He's an avid runner, and he was talking about running, and he was talking about the fact that he is so in tune with how he's running that he is literally counting his steps every time he's running, counting his steps and the number of times he breathes as he's taking those steps, and his mind is so focused on breathing right and taking the right number of steps that he's totally in tune, and he has created a consistent habit that this is what I do, and it keeps me in tune, it keeps me on track, it keeps me moving towards the ultimate goal, right? Because it's all connected to my why. Why am I doing this? And then that other piece that I really like that you stated is really about rewarding yourself in the process. At every step, rewarding yourself, celebrating yourself. I believe that if we grab hold to a few things, that we can break the spirit of procrastination. I'm not saying that you won't fall in that trap at some point. But I do believe procrastination will cause you to get off mission. And I know some of us, if you're like me, you probably have lied to yourself and said, I think better when I'm under pressure. I do better when I'm pressed against the clock and all of that. Yeah, I've said that. The truth of the matter is, you create a lot of strain and stress that's not needed if you just simply develop those consistent habits, prioritize and organize, reward yourself along the way, keep things in perspective. Then you don't have to be stressed, up all night, sweating bullets. because you got it already done. Too many of us miss an opportunity because we procrastinate.
You know, you mentioned about staying up all night. One thing that I found is when I eliminate procrastination, it's just the opposite. I sleep better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have more peace about it because it's one or two things that's happening. Either I know that I finished my day and I put in the effort that I had for that day, or it's scheduled to be back on the board for tomorrow, knowing that I already started today. So I can rest well with nothing on my mind of that sort. And the stress levels come down and rest and recovery becomes much easier.
That's a amazing ending to our discussion tonight. Start today. There's an old cliche, and then we're gonna end. There's an old cliche that says, "When is the best time to plant a tree?" It says 20 years ago. Then it says, "What's the next best time to plant a tree?" Right now. So right now, for each and every one of you listening, I want you to affirm with us that I will do today what God is calling me to do. That I will not procrastinate. That I will move into my purpose. Follow my destiny. Follow the plan that's laid out for me. I will not procrastinate. That's our thought. See you next week on Transformation Thursday.